very much at all, because I'll confess from the beginning that I'm not a fashion expert, nor am I a technology expert, but just on behalf of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Centre, which is the organisation that I represent together with my colleague Karen Tan and my colleagues Fiona and Chloe behind you all there. But just to really say a huge thanks for joining us, a huge thanks to our speakers. For HKIAC, which is our abbreviated name, you wouldn't automatically associate fashion with an arbitration centre, other than amongst the staff. But we do actually see disputes that arise in the intellectual property and technology space that could be relevant to the industry. Actually, what was more important for us as a centre was to get to know Sarah and to learn about her initiative. And also what aligned very neatly with us was actually our drive for sustainability. So at the centre, yes, we manage international and domestic disputes, but we have many other initiatives, and one of those is sustainability. And at the moment, we have two initiatives. One is to reduce our environmental footprint, and the second one kicks off today, which is our sustainability series. So what we really want to do with these types of events is to collaborate with people like Sarah at HULA. Firstly, because we love coming to a space like this, rather than, we do have good offices, but they're not as interested and they don't have the shoe selection that you have here. And also to work with Mayer Brown, the international law firm. So it's a really good collaborative start for us. And what we really want to do is to get people together, cross-industry, to really start to have a dialogue about sustainable living and working. So this is the first event for us, and we're really happy to be here and to collaborate and to hear from our experts. I'm sorry if I pronounce this incorrectly. Anita Varshney, the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at SAP NextGen. Yeah. We also have Edwin Kate, CEO of Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles and Apparel, and Amita Haylock, Counsel at Mayer Brown. Now, that's enough from me, and I will hand over to our experts. But before I do so, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Amita. And I was thinking three things that I can say. I'm actually going to say them in reverse order, because the first thing is completely relevant to today and where we are at. A huge fashion lover, I think that's clear. Passionate about issues relating to fairness and safety at all levels of the fashion supply chain. Also, Amita is counsel at Mayer Brown, and she focuses on litigating intellectual property, technology, and competition disputes across a broad range of industries, including luxury brands. So she's very well placed to put the questions to our experts. So I'll hand over to you, Amita. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Kiran, and thank you everyone for coming today and for your support. Now I've got three questions to kick this off. First question is, why does sustainability in fashion matter? Second question, how committed are industry stakeholders to this cause? And my third question today is, what role does technology play to bring about a more sustainable fashion industry? Joining me today are two very well qualified experts to talk on fashion and technology. Anita started her journey working with some of SME's customers in the APAC region, supporting them on integrating their company-wide business processes, performance improvement projects, including platform rollouts and change management. She then started working with SAP NextGen, leading strategy for team members spread across the globe. While they started with collaborating with their academic network to bring innovations to SAP customers, they soon expanded to also work with a growing ecosystem of investors, accelerators, startups, and incubators. Our second speaker today is Edwin Keh. Edwin is the CEO of the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles and Apparel, better known as HKRITA. I will get into that in a bit more detail later. He's also on the faculty at the Water School, University of Pennsylvania, and the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, where he teaches supply chain operations. Until April 2010, Edwin was also the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Walmart Global Procurement. Edwin has a career as senior executive with several US consumer goods and retail companies. He was the managing director of Payless Shoe Source International, Donna Karan International, and Country Road, Australia. He has also worked for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Now, just very quickly, I want to give you a brief introduction to HK Rita because a lot of us have not heard of them and the incredible work that they do. They don't talk about it. Established in 2006, HK Rita is funded by the Innovation and Technology Commission of the Hong Kong government and hosted by the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. HK Rita engages in applied research to support the textile and apparel industry in order to boost its overall competitiveness and to drive sustainable improvements and bring benefits to society. Now, thank you, Anita and Edwin, for joining us today. Let's kick off with the first question I have for you. So, what really is the problem with fashion sustainability? Anita?
Before I start, was a very heavy loaded introduction. How many of you know these 17 colors that I'm wearing? 17 colors, raise your hands. Okay, there are few in this room who know 17 colors. So there are 17 UN Global Goal colors and they all relate to SDGs and how companies today around the world are putting their efforts, no matter which industry they are in, on sustainability. So thank you for a wonderful introduction, and I'll come to fashion and what fashion, how does it pertain to my work. It's because all of you know SAP? World's biggest fashion brands are running SAP, but the customers now are looking to, what next for us? It's profits, is it? Is it digital transformation? What is it? And the answer is it's sustainability, having sustainable businesses. And that's where we work with a lot of fashion brands around the world to have sustainable, supply chain, to have the problems across the supply chains sorted out so that they can use data for running a sustainable business. So the problems as in the supply chain for the fashion, they're across, right? How you're procuring today, what kind of practices are there in the raw material side, across the supply chain, how well are you using the data to produce, whether it's shoes, your bags, or clothes, right? So using data all along the supply chain to mark out where to reduce wastage on water, and to use resources more effectively. So the problems are there, the raw material side along the supply chain, and at the end, what do brands really drive, right? What brands mean to people? So if you are buying an Adidas or a Nike shoe, what are you buying it for? Is it because it's sustainable? Is it a sustainable product, or what it stands for? So I think the problems is us as consumers, the fast fashion trends which are there today, and all these big brands who are big fashion retailers, they are facing that. How do they do the supply chain more sustainably? How do they answer more conscious, customers who are rising today, who want to make sustainable choices? So I guess the problems are all across the supply chain, and Edwin can share a bit more on that.
What is wrong with this supply chain for the fashion industry? I think, let me frame it a little bit differently. The fashion industry has been wildly successful in the last, in our lifetime. Right? There are all these great brands that are now multi-billion-dollar companies. So when things are good and you are making lots of money, there's not a lot of motivation to change. Is sort of the first challenge. The second challenge is that we have built this beautiful linear global supply chain, and it's optimized to do one thing very well: make stuff in the east, consume stuff in the west. And the problem is that it goes in one direction. It is very hard for it to go back the other way. There's no sort of reverse logistics for what we have produced. And then thirdly, I think fundamentally, we sort of kind of mispriced the fashion items that we use. We sort of stopped at the consumer and really have not thought about the disposal of it, or the end of life of it, and the use of it. And as a result of which, products are now very affordable, and we can buy a lot of it, and we don't have to pay the price for dealing with the consequences of our acquisitions. In most hotels in the US, for example, it's cheaper for you to throw away your underwear than to get it laundered. That's like a phenomenon of the mispricing of products that we use. Finally, I would say that we grew up thinking about this industry as an infinite growth industry. We were talking about it both earlier. That companies will just continue to grow and brands will continue to make more and more stuff, and we will continue to use more and more stuff, and there is no constraint on the resources. And we have probably crossed over that constraint a while back, and we just haven't noticed it. So shifting our thinking from an infinite growth model to a model in which we have to think about constraints is kind of.
The fashion industry is probably one of the only industry which touches consumers so much. So like all of us sitting in the room, our choices are driving those big brands. So if we choose to buy every 3 months, they will give us clothes every 3 months. So it's so much heavily dependent upon what consumers today think and the way they use fashion.
Yeah. So second question is, how can technology help? Anita,
Yes.
you want to go first?
So as I said, technologies will keep coming, and each year we are going forward. We will have more trends, whether it's machine learning, blockchain, or even like end-to-end digital supply chains, right? So technology is available to all of us on our hands, on our, it's literally everywhere. It's the idea of what you want to use the technology for. So as Edwin was saying, fashion industry any industry is made in a way that you continuously keep making profits. So you use technology to have better stock, to have better visibility into what your customers needs, and you use the data to make more profits, right? And that is what SAP's customers have been doing, that we integrate our supply chains, we know how much we need to procure, how much we need to produce, and how much the customer needs, right? So technology, the supply chain is integrated and you are making profits. The question is how to go forward with that technology and say, you know what, here is the amount which is coming back to my store, how do I put it to a better use? Or for example, this is how much wastage I'm having today, how do I eliminate it, and how do I think about the environment first, or look at the impact of how much water do I use to make my clothes. So technology, I would say it depends upon the business driver and the mindset who's using the technology. He or she, so we have had, I was doing an event where Sana was there, had these incredible startups, all tech startups, and they're fashion tech startups. They could give very good examples of using technology for eliminating wastage. So for example, better fitted clothes, right? So you don't end up wasting them, returning them. Better fitted clothes, use technology. AI can actually do that for you. Use blockchain for actually counterfeit products in the market. It's with the luxury segment where you're not able to track that is this a real Nike shoe, and blockchain helps you go backwards in the chain and to really see where that shoe came from. So you can use technology in different small parts across the supply chain, but at the end, the push, I think, from the big brands and the big customers, who are in the fashion industry, is they want to go towards circular chains, and we need to find these small pockets of innovation, which will probably get the data from different sources of technology underlying it and drive the innovation. Another example is you all use phones, right? When you go and buy a shoe or you buy a shirt, you want to talk about it, right? You are letting the brand know how you feel about it. Today, brands use those to see how did a brand make you feel. They use that input and make their brands better. Or for example, as I was mentioning, Under Armour makes the shoes, and the athletes can use the shoe, give feedback on product innovation using their mobile devices, and that goes back into the supply chain software which they're using. So technology, I think, will go better and better and better. It's us as a mindset, what we want to use technology for.
I think the industry has adopted a lot of new tech. If you go back and pull out something from 20 years ago, a dress or a jacket from 20 years ago, you find it's heavier, it's not as comfortable, it's not as soft. So today we have lots of high performance materials that makes things breathable, wicks away moisture, are very comfortable to wear. So on the material science part, certainly there's a lot of advances. In our center, we have self-sterilizing clothes that will never stink. We have self-cleaning clothes that will clean itself if you put it in sunlight. We have a banker that asks if does that mean I never have to change my underwear? Actually, real banker, real question. And my answer was theoretically yes, practically probably you don't want to do that. But so all these things really do make our lives and our colors are more vibrant. There's all sorts of very cool ways of cutting clothes now. So we have 3D knitting, we have 3D pattern making that make jackets flex with you so that you can grab this thing in the MTR and things like that. So all those things are good, and then you couple with the intelligence of technology like SAP to get just the right clothes to you at the right place at the right price, if you will, and that fits you perfectly. It's the making of a much cooler shopping experience, right? So that's the good news. The bad news is this. This is probably one of the most expensive, dumb systems we carry around with us every day. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the only thing you can do with your phone is to make phone calls, right? Today, that's the center of our social life that informs us, protects us, that keeps us in touch with the world, and it is a very active, multifunction system that provides a lot of value. 10 years ago, you bought a t-shirt, you got a t-shirt. Tomorrow, you buy a t-shirt, you'll still get the same functionality from that t-shirt. Instead of selling clothes, why don't you give us some designs and help us program this design into our system? We'll put your label on it, and it'll be your design. And now we have a digital fashion business. Designers are selling designs. Designers are no longer selling clothes. It's just the raw material comes from the consumer.
Which is actually what they're selling. Their design is what matters.
So we want to try these fundamentally new business models, and that will solve like a high street problem. But of course, we got to make that much more efficient. This is a bespoke operation right now. We got to match Primark prices or whatever it is before we can scale this thing up. So we still have work to do. But that's sort of, we want to get people to start imagining and reimagining the industry.
So,
Let's get the next question.
oh yeah, just in regards to Primark, so I'm a part of the same chain. We make sunglasses for most of the fast fashion retailers globally.
Yeah?
And the last 2 years, we've been working very hard to make sunglasses from rPET, so recycled plastic bottles, from a polylactic acid. And you need to get the composition of this material right. I mean, we're a sunglass company and we're becoming scientists all the way through it. And we have another product which is upcycling some of our industrial waste. And we speak to the likes of H&M about these products. There's a lot of challenges there because, as I said, we're manufacturers and suddenly you have to go into a very scientific space. And everybody asks the question, what is all that scientific outcome? And I'm like, well, we're doing the best we can. So you don't want to greenwash either. So we're trying.
Yes.
And then the challenge is how do you get it to market at a fast fashion price?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the challenge we've taken on. We're very excited about it. We've got some great innovations.
Yes.
But I think the supply chain is doing a lot in the background. It's amazing hearing.
I think you're absolutely asking the wrong people, because sitting on this couch is the geek end of the fashion industry.
Yeah, exactly.
The fashion industry tends to attract artists, and for 100 years it was an art, right?
Yes.
And now
It is.
SAP comes along with predictive analytics and take all the romance out of it. But you're right. But what we need is more scientists.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Art meets science collaboration.
Art meets science. It is, and that is probably going to bring us back to human, what the cloth was actually designed for, right?
Yeah. But it's a great problem to solve, right? Because what you're doing is you're repurposing material and creating a high value product out of it. A couple of my students started an eyeglass company Warby Parker.
Oh yeah, okay. They did
So
very well.
yeah. They instead of listening to me, they became millionaires, right? So but the Harvard business case talk about why is Warby Parker successful? There's 4 big things that they did right. It was aesthetically good. It was priced right. Shopping with them is good and it's friendly and all that kind of stuff. And 4, they have a social mission. It's a one-for-one company, right? You every time you buy a pair of glasses, they give a pair of glasses away to some needy person in the third world. And so that last one, so the good and social component of a brand, I think is going to be part of all sustainable modern brands right about now.
That's what Adidas probably did 2 weeks
Yeah,
back.
It's okay,
let's get the
it's okay.
answers.
I just want to, we talked about lots of different things, recycling, technology, companies that are doing things for social good, transparency. My question is, if you think about sustainability from a 50,000 square feet, talking retail terms, 50,000 meters or whatever you want to call it, what is the problem that we need to resolve? Because this is a big elephant, right? So has anyone framed what this problem is?
For the fashion
it
industry or
For the fashion industry, yes, we're talking about fashion. So what is the problem? Is it that we buy too much stuff? Is it that we throw away too much stuff? Is it that as we produce a lot of stuff that we buy, then we use a lot of resources? Is it a combination of all of that? And if it is, has anyone articulated what this is? And are there any measurements in place to be able to say, what is that is going to move the dial? Is recycling going to move the dial? Is customer behavior going to move the dial? And if it is, which are the 3 things that we should do? First, second, and third. Has anyone done any of this? Because
That was your
I
last
just see
question.
lots of people doing lots of stuff,
It was the last
spinning
question.
around. I mean, I currently work. I worked in the fashion industry for many years, and I am now an investor. And I was talking to Sarah the other day and saying, I just meet all these startup people. First of all, everyone has a startup nowadays. Everyone is raising money. Everyone is hiring people. Everyone is looking for space. Everyone is investing in technology. That in itself is not sustainable, in my opinion. It's a waste of time, a waste of resources. As an investor, I want to give 20 different people investing in the same things. But then, when you think about sustainability, is anyone thinking about this in a really big way? Something that's going to really move the dial. What is that one thing? If you have an answer.
Reduce the obsession of consumerism.
So I think because the problem itself is not like one brand alone cannot make a difference. So in fashion, for example, if you take in that fashion industry as an example, all these big brands, they have to have these sustainable elements at every part of the supply chain. It cannot be, I would say, done by one player, done by one part of the cycle, or have a pinpoint, and it will have a big impact. To have a big impact, I think partnerships. So I know there are many startups out there, but what I believe is that if there are 2-3 startups are coming together for a true partnership on a big social purpose, which is also profitable, that is something where we want to invest in, right? So I would say there are elements of sustainability across. When you are manufacturing those clothes, selling those clothes, and we need to make a difference at each of them. So actually, you see a big impact coming together. Otherwise, if you are only producing, let's say, from recycled clothes or producing only from organic cotton, will that solve the problem? No, right? So I think what each player, and Edwin might know more because he's working with big brands, is each brand is trying to take up those areas, those problems where they think they can start making a difference. Whether it's taking back clothes from the market and upsell, cleaning them and selling them again, whether it's reduce, recycle, they're finding their own ways to make a sustainable impact. But I don't think there is one written big project that this is how we can achieve and be 100% sustainable.
I hear your question, and it's a big one. I think it's a multifaceted question, and so fundamentally, one of the challenges for the fashion industry is that we are not behaving appropriately for the era we're in. Fashion industry grew up at a time when there was, especially luxury, right? There was a very small clientele who can afford to use this stuff and buy this stuff and own this stuff. And we had a lot more resources back then because we had a very small marketplace. Now the marketplace has exploded. The Chinese consumer, there is probably, pick a number, somewhere between 350 to 500 million Chinese who are becoming middle class even as we speak. And in India, the next 5 years, 350 million plus middle class consumers, and they will consume for the very first time. That is 2 Americans that is going to start consuming in our lifetime. And if they consume the same way as their Western counterparts are consuming today, there's just not enough resources to satisfy that need, right? So the whole consumption pattern, the whole notion of ownership is obsolete. One. And then 2, because of this constraint, now is do you grow cotton or do you grow wheat? The arable land available and water available is now limited. So there are some hard choices that we have to make.
Coming back to your point, Edwin, from earlier, these fashion industries have been built to be linear. The business models have remained same while the economies, the world has moved on. Because the business model still believes in producing, throwing. That is no longer sustainable.
And when consumption was small, you can do that because you're
Exactly.
And then to add on to that is because consumption is growing, we discovered that actually we use a lot of chemicals and resources and materials that are hard to break down and are highly pollutant. And so because year on year, just a number I saw the other day sort of puts this into context, right? In 1989, Hong Kong was the busiest port in the world, and we shipped 4.5 million TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, and that got us into number 1 in the world. Today we're number 4, 5, or 6, but the top port in the world, the number 1 port in the world, probably ships on the order of magnitude about 30 million TEUs. The top 5 are Chinese ports, right? If Hong Kong continued to ship 4.5 million TEU, we don't even make the top 20. Right? The sheer volume of consumption is growing, and we just sort of assume that there's this infinite volume, infinite growth, and brands always can make more and consume more, and there's no end to this. Well, cotton and polyester apart. The polyester comes out exactly the same state as it went in. There's absolutely no damage to it. It's a very, very rapid process, somewhere between 35 minutes to an hour plus, depending on the concentration. And then this is the most important part of it, it's a fiber-to-fiber recycling. So instead of melting it down and going through a very complicated and expensive rework, we basically twist things together, make yarns, and we've been knitting sweaters with that without doing anything else to it. So we're very excited about it, and the typo factory is a for-profit with no special tax breaks, with no support, and it is selling comparable to virgin material to brands today at 70% of virgin costs. So it's cheaper, it's the same, and it's a very short recycling route, which is why everybody got excited
Can I
about it.
ask, where are you sourcing your? You're saying you're turning
The raw material.
the
This is the beauty of it.
Because are you not disrupting a parallel industry?
Yeah, exactly, right? So I go back to my conversation with Carrie Lam in the elevator, right? Which my fault. And basically, she asked me, "What are you doing in Type 1 anyway?" I said, "Well, it's a demonstration plan. We want this, it's a ton a day, 3 tons a day, and we want this to be people to come here, and then we want to build a 50-ton facility in China, because that's where the stuff is. And she looked at me and said, we as a community, every day in Hong Kong, between 7.5 million of us, we throw away 340 tons of apparel. And every
The raw
day.
material is right here.
So up to 2018, the way to solve that problem is you put them in 40-foot containers and you ship them to China. Out of sight, out of mind, somebody else's problem. 2018, China says we're not going to take anybody's trash anymore. So those things are going to landfill. Now, of the 340 tons that are thrown away, and then think of these as things that end up in donation boxes that you see.
Yes.
Yeah.
In all the buildings, yes.
The top half of the donation box are clothes that can end up here. They're not damaged, they're fine, they can be reused as is. So those get used by the NGOs, and we say, take those. What we're dealing with is the bottom half of that stuff. So there's the soil damage, unknown content, we're taking medical waste, and things like that. And we say, those, let us process, because the only route there are landfill, incineration, or you make carpets and insulation out of them. And Hong Kong doesn't have a carpet or insulation industry, so it's landfill. So we're taking those and we're messing around with them. Since then, we've got requests. We've made stuff for Cathay Pacific, pink things, because they have 10,000 workers in uniforms and they go through 2 uniforms every year. So it's just, okay, we know what that stuff is. We can make bags and blankets and things like that out of them. We've gotten some sheets and towels from the Peninsula Hotel, 400 count Egyptian cotton or whatever it is that they have. So we're making sweaters and white sweaters and things. So there's a lot of use for that. But the intent is not to take stuff that is useful as is and reprocess it.
I didn't so much suggest that you might be taking things away from NGOs and good causes or anything like that, but more that there is a whole massive profit-making industry in large-scale amounts of apparel that can be reused and sold for profit.
But we don't.
We don't.
We
Yeah.
don't. We in Hong Kong, I go back to this point I made earlier. We misprice apparel.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
cheap. It's cheaper to throw it away than to do something. Unfortunately.
Is it scalable though? Is your technology scalable?
Yeah.
Can you recycle like tons and tons of?
I sure hope so. We are by August we should have talked somebody into building so like this hydrothermal system is about 150 kilos a day. The next system is a ton a day, and the system after that should be around 10 tons a day. And there's still some engineering challenges to deal with this. I tell you something about this too. Hong Kong is a great place to be in because you're on the crossroads of everything. We're on the crossroads of everything. Everybody comes through here, and we have visibility upstream and downstream of everything. Right? So this system, remember, we started working with H&M 3.5 years ago. This system was an idea in the lab 3 years ago. It was a pilot scale machine that's about yay big that can make a couple of grams 2 years ago, and now we're at 150 kilos a day. How did we do that? Well, first of all, we cheated. The traditional research route is that you go from lab scale, bench scale, prototyping trial, you publish papers, you go to seminars and talk about it. We talk about an 8-year route. We basically told the government we have solved all the problems, just give us the money and we'll build the system. And then we told our engineers, we got the money, we got 12 months, let's figure these things out. And then we went to Japan, where there was 10 years ago, there was a booming synthetic industry making polyester. But they all moved to China. And we found this group of Japanese engineers on golf courses and things like that in the southern part of Japan. We've been working in Japan for many years now, so not like me going down to a golf course talking about it. But we said, we've got this idea and we really need to get this out of the box and at scale. And we got the CEO of H&M to cut the ribbon for this event and help. And we know you guys can do it. I know we can't scale up at that speed. And we got I think about 15 Japanese engineers from a company called, we used to work for a company called Teijin, which did a lot of polyester recycling. And we worked together, designed it, engineered it. We built most of it in Japan, shipped it to Taipo, and said, "Yay, we did it." We last August, before we opened, we worked around the clock. These poor guys. Remember, these are retired engineers. The youngest was 67, the oldest was 81-year-old guy. This is a 2-story system. They were climbing up, and I thought somebody's going to die. No air conditioning. Somebody's going to die or something. And I remember at the end of the opening ceremony, I went around and thanked all these young scientists. Really couldn't have done it without you. What wonderful work you guys did. And they said collectively, thanks for saving us from the golf course. Because we're bored, we want to be useful. We couldn't find things to do in Japan. So it's really just sort of taking, in Hong Kong you can do stuff like that, and you can get away with doing stuff like that. Most other countries in the world, you can't take money to Japan and get retired people to work and get away with it. So we do, every day we do a lot of shortcuts like this just so that we can get, because this is a problem that doesn't have 8 years. Right? We are running out of time. There's an environmental crisis.
I had a question. Just going back to all of that, clearly labels are starting to print more on, made from recycled materials, and obviously for a long time they've been writing what kind of materials they're using to produce the clothes, like cotton or silk or what have you. When do you think we're going to get to a point when there's much more disclosure on all of that? Because to your point about recycled materials, they're not all the same, and still the sourcing of that and getting to that point, I think, is still questionable. So I always liked the Starbucks analogy. When Starbucks first opened, I think people felt pretty good about walking in and getting their large frappuccino with their big muffins and all of that. And the minute they start to disclose the calories and the ingredients, someone in their right mind would go in the morning and say that's a great way to start my day, right? So I think it's, I know it's starting to happen, but it's even in the investment world, people slap ESG on everything and some of it may be genuine, and others of it, it's hard to tell as a naive consumer or investor what that actually entails. So I'm just curious to know what you think. I mean, to me, it sounds like it has to be regulation, it has to be mandated that you have to publish.
I think so.
Yeah, it's the movement is driven by many things. The consumers demand more transparency, and just like I'm learning so much, what does recycle actually mean? A lot of us don't even know the details behind recycling. So I think the one thing which is catching up in the conscious consumers is like they go and attend meetups, they listen to conversation, they understand what recycled means, right? So consumers today are reading up a lot, and especially with the social media, the decentralization of innovation. The decentralization of knowledge. Many of us, at least the conscious consumers, they want to read and they really want to understand what the brands that they are buying, what they're doing. So one thing is the movement in the consumer space. The second thing is when the shareholders and the stockholders and what they are saying is, if you want us to invest in you or if you want us to buy shares, then you have to be more transparent about your practices, whether it's sustainable practices, labor practices, or how you are producing your material. You can't just have a page in your the yearly book under the CSR category, this is how we are doing this. They have to really walk the talk. So I think the push is both from where you can make your money from and what the consumers demand. Brands have also used that to make profits, and coming back to how to make profits, like if Adidas says that you want to use you have to use a shoe which is from recycled plastic, how many customers are really going to buy those shoes? So they have campaigns, they have movements to really see, is this what the customer wants, and they respond to it. So I think it's a combination of different factors which will push brands to take a better stand and have more transparency, because that's what people want to go and buy. They want to associate themselves for. And especially, I think, like for those who are, I think, want to be more conscious to the environment or be more sustainable about their choices, they will read up. If you are buying Nike shoe one after the other, or if you're buying one pair of clothes one after other from Zara, you would want to know, how is Zara making these clothes so cheap, and why are they all produced in Vietnam and coming here? So I think these all forces in the economy are pushing brands to be more transparent, because if they aren't, the competitors are, and they have no face to go ahead with.
I love that analogy of the Starbucks, right? Wouldn't it be great if there was a nutrition label for clothes that says, this is what you're making, this is what it's made of, this is what it's doing as consequence of you purchasing this. This is sort of the silver bullet that the industry have been thinking about and talking about, but have had no forward movement for at least 15 years. This is not a new idea, but what does that label look like is difficult.
And it's also because if you have that high calorie coffee or muffin, you immediately see your weight. But even if you see the bad label on your clothes, are you telling me these consumers will stop and not buy that if it was not producing sustainably?
But there's a couple of structural problems, right? One, there's no transparency in the supply chain. Because we've built this global supply chain, we don't know where this stuff comes from. We don't know a lot about the chemistry of this stuff. We don't know who made this and under what conditions these things were made. We don't know how it's transported. We just know it's got this brand. But brands today, they basically focus on every activity that is consumer facing, and they've outsourced everything else behind the curtain. And so what we need to do is probably need SAP systems that can, with blockchain technology, that can actually tell us what's going on. Because unless we have the information, everything we say will be suspect.
Yeah.
And then there are brands like Everlane, let's say, right? And they built the brand around, hey, this stuff is, we're transparent. This is how we made it. But can you scale that to $1 billion business? It's going to be difficult. You work with 3 guys.
Sorry.
I've just got a question. It's an observation, largely because I look at the high street, and the high street is making me want to buy things now, and it's just on a quick cycle. Is there any reason that the technology that we were discussing here can't be upscaled such that your high street looks different, and the drop boxes are just emptied, and all of those materials, there's a solution found to feed them back into the other end of the supply chain? Or how far away from that actually are we?
But you said 1%, right?
Yeah, so all the clothes that
99%
we use,
away.
only 1% can be recycled as of today.
How do we go about changing that so that we put the products together?
Well, so
That's just one example. That is where it's difficult to innovate, because you literally have to innovate how you're making your shirt today.
Yeah.
So that's what, if Adidas want to make a completely recyclable shoe, it has to work with BASF to come up with a chemical like that, which can be melted and made into a new shoe. So it's a hardcore product innovation which would have to happen to make it completely recyclable.
So for instance, our typo factories, there's no garment factories in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Everything all the yarns that we make in typo gets shipped to China. Don't forget, China has already banned the import of waste. We've been shipping this stuff to China, and they said, what is it? Yarns. I said, okay, go. So it's a fundamental shift in how you handle that material. So fundamentally, if high street waste can't go back to China as is, high street waste needs to be dealt with around the corner from high street. And this is one of the motivations of building a factory in Hong Kong. Because if we can make it work in the world's most expensive city, then you can make it. There's no excuse not to do this reprocessing anywhere in the world. Now the other experiment that sort of we've got a lot of press around recently is this shop that we opened up in the Mills, the project. So this is the G2G shop, the garment shop. And here, if you go to the Mills project, you'll see it. It's on the ground floor, right next to the grand stairs. And here's a very simple proposition. We tell consumers, bring your old clothes, and we will break them down into yarns and fibers, and we will build them up, and we will 3D knit you a new garment out of your old clothes. And everything is in a 40-foot container in a glass box, and if you want to know what's going on, it's a counterclockwise walk around the glass box, 8 steps, and you can see what's going on there. So why are we doing that? One, we want people to understand what recycling is. It's an education thing. Today, you drop it into some collection box and you never see it again.
And you
Right?
have no idea what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Here, we want you to see exactly what could happen, right? Because fashion is fast, but the raw material for making clothes are actually quite valuable, and there's a long life to it. Let's do something else with it. If you lost weight, gained weight, it's no longer fashionable, you don't like this anymore. Here's how we can transform it for you. You don't have to throw it away. The second thing we want to do is we're now learning to program all these 3D knitting systems that we built in that glass box. And we're not very good at it. I was just sending a text before you came on this afternoon. They made me a V-neck sweater from a couple of old sweaters I gave them. I said, yeah, but it's not very good. I really would like that too. And so we have 6. We have I think 3 engineers and 3 scientists, PhDs, that we said, good news, your project is funded. Bad news, we're moving your lab from our lab to a glass box in a shopping mall where you will be working. That actually is an ITF-funded science project in that glass box if you go into the shopping mall. And what we want to do there is, as soon as we can get that programming better, give us a couple of weeks or months. This is probably the most antiquated, non-connected system that we use, and we basically haven't moved with the lifestyle changes or demands of society. So there's lots of opportunity to disrupt that, and this is where startups come.
Yes.
So doing the heavy lifting.
Yes. Funny you mentioned the phone, right? Like one time I wore this T-shirt on my Instagram, and I cannot repeat it, right? Because that's what people do. Once I have taken a photograph with a T-shirt, a new T-shirt that I bought, I put it on Instagram, and I don't want to have the same picture again on my Instagram. And the thing is, because it's already there, and that's the thing between lots of people that once they've showed it that they own this T-shirt, they don't want to repeat it. So sometimes tech can also be for the hype of it can be bad, right? Once I've shown, and you don't want to repeat and wear that T-shirt, and you instead go buy another T-shirt. So again, I mean, it's good to know about those people who are like kind of conscious about this. That I did not, as he said, it's a T-shirt. You use it as a T-shirt. Don't post on Instagram and go buy another one after 2 months again. So yeah, tech also has.
But here's the problem, right? All of us have phones, and in 12 months, most of us will also buy another phone, okay? Because the functionality is improved. Today, in this room, amongst us friends, we announce a moratorium. It says, from here on out, for the rest of our lives, nobody buy another piece of garment. None of us will freeze to death this winter, I don't think, right? We have 2 of everything. So the functionality of buying clothes, of consumption, the motivation isn't going to be there anymore. I mean, unless we do something about that, one of these days we're just going to say, I think I'm going to stop.
Edwin, can you please talk about the HULA and H&M recycling facility?
Okay. HULA, we're on the campus of the Polytechnic University. Just so that we're clear, it's a very small research center. There's 28 of us. We occupy 3 classrooms in a very crowded campus. And I joined the center about 7 years ago now. people on campus don't even know where we are. Nobody's ever heard of us 7 years ago. And we were a center looking for a purpose. And then we did a very big industry stakeholder survey. Brands, manufacturers, material suppliers. We said, what are your biggest challenges? What can we be useful with? What problems can we solve? So and we, about 5 years ago, came up with a big challenge. Sustainability, for sure, because everybody is talking about it. Industry 4.0, the automation and intelligence around manufacturing. And then this thing about how do we change along with the lifestyle changes of consumers and as society change. We're getting older, but we want to be more active. How do we produce things that people will actually love to use? And that drove our research initiative till now. Today we're still on these big themes. H&M Foundation is the not-for-profit arm of H&M. It is a foundation that every year, it's a fairly low-key foundation. Every year they give somewhere between 160 to 200 million euros away for to improve water, women causes, and to improve all sorts of sort of issues around society, around the world that they work on. And they came to us with the challenge to work on circularity. This is about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And true story, we said go away. And the reason for that, when we said, so you're the arsonist and now you want to be the fireman? That's what I hear you saying, one. And then two, we don't need money. The Innovation and Technology Fund that Hong Kong government has set up gives us a lot of resources to do research. I don't know if we want to be associated with you. And I said, but you guys, go to the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, go to Central St. Martin's, Georgia Tech, MIT. These guys are doing really good work. Go there and work with them. And they came back to us 3 months later and said, we still want to work with you. I said, why? It is because we really want these things to make a difference in the supply chain. We really want to we don't want laboratory, theoretical, small things. We really want things to make an impact. And we said, oh, cool, we like that. But here's the rules. We control all the IPs, everything that comes. We hold the IPs, and we control the use of the IPs. All you get to do is to give us money. And two, we will drive a lot of the research agenda around sustainability and circularity. So we want to focus on chemical recycling, biological recycling, and very effective recycling methods. And in fact, we want to not only solve science problems, we want to solve the business case problem, we want to solve the reverse logistics problem. We want to make it profitable for people to think circular. And they said yes. And so for the last 3.5 years, we've been very, very happy working with them, taking their money. We have, in the last, September last year, we made 2 big announcements which got us a lot of attention. One is around a way to separate blended materials using heat and pressure without damaging the material in the process. A very benign way of doing separation. And once you separate material, you recycle them. And then we've also opened up a factory, opened up a mill in Tai Po Industrial Estate that actually is right now producing about 150 kilos of that type of repurposed material and recycling 3 tons of post-consumer apparel waste every day. Carrie Lam came and actually cut the ribbon last September, and I asked her nicely, on the way out, I said, the chief executive's job must be quite busy. Why would you come all the way from Central to halfway to China and Tai Po to cut the ribbon on this factory? And she said, she smiled. I may have lost my job. But she smiled and said, well, because one, this is fun. She wants to know if this is a hype or is there something real about it. And two, he says, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is the first factory to open in Hong Kong in more than 50 years. And she said, you guys, why did you do that? I said, well, because if it works in Hong Kong, we make money in Hong Kong, it'll work in any city in the world, right? So one approval point. There are other consequences to that conversation. But yeah, so that's the big chunk of our work. We're working on biological recycling using enzymes and fermentation to separate materials and break down materials. They are also funding some new methods that we're working on using triboelectric methods to do dry separation. We're focused on dry separation, and then we're doing some work around cotton growing, and cotton processing and cotton recycling. That's why I was in India. It was hot.
Oh, it was. How many, only 1% of your clothes can be recycled. And the reason why only 1% can be recycled is exactly with this process, because our clothes are not made with one material. It's very easy to say recycle, but the process behind it, we need people like Edwin's team to come up with those ideas to really separate these different elements in making that cloth. And I was talking about Hyperloop. So Adidas is coming up with a Hyperloop shoe. They can take back the shoe from the market completely melted and give you back a new shoe. So fully recyclable shoe. It takes innovation in tech, chemicals and processes to really come up with those methods of how to make something fully recyclable, which is a very, very big thing to do. Sorry, Edwin, you were saying something.
No, I was.
Okay. Yes.
I
So did you
I had a question on the product that you come out after the recycling. Is it still a downcycling technology,
No.
or the quality is still good?
No. This is the beauty of it. So this is why everybody got excited about breakthrough. So today, if you want to, let's say you take a PET bottle, which is the traditional sort of polyester recycling, and you break it, you chip it, and then you melt spin it, and you make a T-shirt out of it. What we have done in essence is you took an unrecyclable bottle and you made an unrecyclable T-shirt out of it. And not only that, but you took a very high molecular weight polyester and you made it a low quality. So that's why you can't. Very difficult to make bottles out of bottles because it becomes more brittle. It doesn't take pressure and it rips itself apart. We started with chemical recycling, trying to do just that, and we said maybe we can make it better. And what we found was that chemical recycling, you're just creating a new waste stream, right, of chemicals, because you have to use fairly harsh chemicals to break down this material. And then all we can do is downcycle. It always makes it worse. So we started taking, over the course of years, taking chemistry out. And now we are left with just heat and pressure and our super secret ingredient, which we said we want H&M's. Don't tell people what that is. Lemon juice.
So we need to round this up. We need to round that quickly. So last question. Given where we are.
Sorry, actually, I just wanted to build on what you said and reply, because I recently read a very interesting report, which is from the Boston Consulting Group, which is called The Pulse of the Fashion Industry.
Yeah.
And it's actually talking about the fact that we are at a tipping point. And the reason why brands today should think to actually recycle or reuse the product is because if we continue at this pace, there will no resources. And that will mean that the textile, the product we use, will be much more expensive. So this is going to become a problem, not just for the consumer, but also for the producer. Because
if you look at it, the circle big enough, we're actually killing off our own consumers.
correct.
Right?
And so they
don't
kind
want
of
to do
give
that.
you all the number of this missed opportunity that if we don't, the industry doesn't change and the consumer doesn't change, that implies additional cost of whatever billions of dollars, because the earth we live on doesn't have enough resources to increase the huge amount of material. So I think
Sure, my question though was, what is the problem and what are the 3 things to do that are really going to move the dial?
Okay, so
I'm not sure
that's
there is clarity
yeah,
enough.
Okay, so to round it up, we're running out of time.
So
Last question for you.
so
Yeah.
what the
Given where we are, is the second-hand market the next big thing?
look, there's lots of hype around the shared economy, about leasing models and all that. I think it's a fundamental shift from ownership to stewardship. Really, that these are valuable things that are finite and we should take care of them would be one thing I would say. I would say positively, I really don't want to be on a negative note. I think humankind has never up to this point, has never failed at solving big problems. That's why we're still here. We have always been able to figure it out. I don't think this is the end of civilization as we know it. I'm pretty sure on a macro level, to die by fashion would be really sad. Right? To die by, so I'm optimistic. We should all be optimistic. But and then two, this some of the things is that we are in Hong Kong. We have one of the fact that Friday night you guys nothing better to do than to come talk about this. We have people who know about this, who care about this, who actually can do a lot to make this to change the situation around. So the Spider-Man speech is great responsibility, great powers, and all that kind of stuff. The things that we can do really is that we can actually be part of the catalyst of change. Because we are all like it or not, we are not victims of this. The farmer in Shimoga is a victim. The low-lying villagers of whatever communities are victims. We are part of the people who has the resources, the power, the knowledge to solve this problem, and it's on us to actually figure out what our lifestyle changes need to be and how we talk about it in our community and in our circle.
Yeah, I just sorry. You want to say something?
Go ahead.
No,
I'll round it up.
Oh yeah, that's it. I mean, he rounded up very beautifully. I think we all here are very privileged. We can make a choice, and if we do make a conscious choice on reusing, recycling, or even reducing, how
But
much
we're
we
also
burn.
talking about it, right?
Sorry?
Talking about it.
Yeah,
influencing
exactly. Influencing, and like many of us, I don't know, our parents, right? I mean, parents in this room. What do I teach to my boy? That why are we not shopping every 2 days, or why do we recycle and share clothes? I think it's all about how we influence our community, and I think in turn that will go and make a bigger person.
And we are the first generation
Yes.
that have ever thought of our clothes as disposable. I mean, not so long ago, mothers gave their daughters clothes as dowry. I mean, these
Yeah.
are things we treasure, and
Yes.
now we
dispose.
treat them as rags. It's just unconscionable. Right?
Back to you, back to grassroots.